So I'm taking in life. I'm breathing in life. And each breath could be a meditation. It could be like, oh, I'm taking in the consciousness of godliness. I'm taking in, if we're doing it unconsciously, I'm taking in the trigger that's in front of me. Sometimes, even if you want to go to godly consciousness, you're feeling the trigger in front of you. So I'm taking it in. I'm taking in life and I'm letting go is the exhale. I'm letting go of what doesn't belong in this moment. It's a process. I'm working through things. The third breath that is actually very, very helpful, and we have a lot of suppression in this breath, is the yawn. When a person yawns, that idea of yawning, you get better at yawning.
I would say it's contagious.
It's
I think yours was
contagious.
forced, so it didn't work for me.
It starts off a little like you're forcing yourself a little bit, but you can get into it. And the reason you need to have yawns is because yawn relaxes your nervous system completely. That's why it's like I'm getting ready to rest, going to sleep. People that are tired, they yawn. People think it's not so polite to yawn because you're telling a person a message you're tired. But actually, when you yawn, you're going into a deep empathetic space. You're giving yourself love, empathy, because you're completely relaxed in that place. And they say that people that don't yawn, if you find them in your life, so people that don't yawn, they don't have empathy. That's why they could be a
It's so
psychopath.
interesting.
So we got to be we
Wow.
got to be aware of our yawning and mimicking that breath, that sigh of relief. You could do any time. You could just go, and it
Yep.
regulates your nervous
And
system.
100%. It really works well. Rabbi Nachman's very big on the psi, and also what you said right now is interesting about the psychopaths because I was just in a class right now, Likutei Moran, with Rav Yitzchak, and he said that Rabbi Nachman says that when a person goes to sleep, they can wake up with new emuna. Because sometimes you have questions, you have things that you're going through. Just by going to sleep, your soul reconnects with its root and it comes down with brand new emuna. It's a brand new day. It comes back recharged with emuna, full emuna, and it gets revealed in the morning when you start your day with tefillah, with Torah. And as the day goes on, you get into the world, it gets covered up. But every morning comes down with a new connection after being reconnected and coming down with brand new emuna. It's the goal is though to like I asked you, right, practical ways for people to start. You gave amazing advice. I would say that the most important thing is for a person to take a few minutes every day. The book that I'm teaching, Neshama Neshima, that Jewish breathwork series that I'm doing on my YouTube is there. He suggested throughout the book 7 minutes. Set for yourself 7 minutes every day that you practice. You can do different techniques, it doesn't matter, but the main thing is to be conscious of your connection to your creator. And when you do that, when the times of test come, like you said with your child, right? And things are starting to get annoying, or you're getting a test in whatever facet of life, you'll be more well versed, you'll be more practiced in breathing. So you'll be able to pull that tool out in a time of need and regulate your system, like you said, and to get through the test and not to throw your toys out the trolley. There's
Yeah.
um there's another world of this healing and era of Mashiach that's coming that we can't avoid talking about, and that's the world of psychedelics. Right? It's happening in many different retreats and many different workshops, not in all, obviously. So for a person that's listened so far, you don't have to think that if you go to a workshop that you're going to do psychedelics. Many don't include it at all, but it's definitely happening, and it's happening in the Jewish world, and it's happening in the Hasidic world. These things are taking off more and more and more. Where do you stand on this idea that's both obviously very revolutionary and there are many breakthroughs for people, but then there's also a lot of risk and there's a lot of sad stories that happen as well. What's your opinion on all of this?
Yeah, I wanted to say one more thing though on the breathwork thing, just so because you were saying something and then you pivoted, which is good. I'm going to talk about that. If people could just, if I asked you to be aware of 10% of your breaths that you take every day, well, that's a big ask because 10% is like 2,000 breaths. That's a lot. You have to do like a full breathwork session. But if I asked you to do 1%, Well, that's 200 breaths. Okay, so that's a little bit of a challenge. It's outside the comfort zone for most people because you don't do that. And if I could start having a relationship with my breath starting there, just realize as I'm breathing, the different tensions in my body. So that's the beginning of your relationship to yourself and why it's so important more than anything, not just because it's so available, not just because it makes you not rely on substances or things like that, but because it has such deep roots in Torah that we know in the beginning of time, it says that God, the process of creating Adam Rishon was Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. He's telling us something. The Torah is always teaching us something about ourselves because it's our
It's
blueprint.
current.
Yeah, it's a timeless message. So how do we connect to the deepest source of the beginning of life? We breathe. We have a relationship to that. When a baby comes out of the womb, the first relationship to life, the first relationship to real life is through breath. That's when the neshama is woken up, which we say, the difference between neshima and neshama, it's the same root. One is neshama, which is your soul. Neshima is your breath, is to connect to your soul, to connect at a soul level. The beginning of the soul's birth is through the breath. So that's a bit of a meditation that we can keep in mind when we're going throughout our days of what we're doing when we're breathing. We're not just breathing because we want healthier cells in our body and so we cannot get triggered, but we're breathing into the source of life. We're breathing into who we really are, and we forget. We forget a lot who we are. So
I
back
just
to
saw
psychedelics.
I just saw Machloket in a book on meditation, Machloket in the Mekubalim, how many breaths does a person take a day? Some say 20,000, some say 25,000. They round 25,900, 25,900, something like that. They round it up to 26 to be able to say it's 26,000 breaths a day. But there's a lot of breaths, right? If you could be conscious of even a little bit more of them, it would improve your life. But now back
Sure.
to the medicine, to the drugs, to
To
whatever
to
way you see it.
to the medicine. Yeah, so it's an interesting question because it's something I've been reflecting on a lot personally, and they've been getting a lot of attention. Like lately, that's been a big talk, and some will say, even when I asked them, which was never a question when you're coming on a workshop, the question used to be who's going to be there and what is this place? Today it's are you serving psychedelics? So the reason that it's getting a lot of attention is because the world is desperate right now, and people are looking for quick solutions. And in many ways, it's understandable. There's so much pain and emotional suppression out there. On the one hand, people have been relying on pills to numb themselves. Like that's what we've been doing. So now, on the other hand, they're turning to psychedelics to open themselves up and express things that were buried for years. So a lot of it looks and can be very healing or help me along my own journey of the blockages that exist between me and myself. But here's where things get a little tricky, is they're powerful. And what I like to say, what I like to do when I see things is I like to reflect it through the lens of the Torah. I think that God gave us the world to be used. I want to say that I know what it represents in Torah, but the way I see it through the lens of the Torah is that psychedelics are a lot of or, it's a lot of light, it's revelation, it's insight. People say I went on a trip, I saw my whole life, like the story of the Lahavdil, but the Arizal, where he went to bed and he woke up and he said that, I would tell you what I dreamt about, but it would take me 80 years. Is we go to a space that transcends time and space. So we feel like we could see our whole lives. And
We need vessels.
but we need insight, we need vessels, we need integration. We need to be able to take what we learn and bring it back into a regular daily moment because the world was built on the foundation of having Kalim. Like we have spirituality is the search for relationship between us and the infinite, right? Lifting ourselves above the circumstance of the world to have a relationship with something above time and space. That's spirituality. It's above limits. That's why, spirituality is like they say spirituality is mostly connected to emotions because emotions are like, okay, let's say I have a mother and I love her. Now she's not here in my house, so I love her even though she's at her house, and now she's not here in the world, and I love her, and I can still have love. I can still feel that emotion, which is like a spiritual connection. It's above time and space. Then there's the integration, which are the kalim, the vessels, is the mitzvahs. It's like, okay, so now I got to show up to life. I got to actually do things. I have responsibilities. It's not about just sitting, under a tree and meditating all day. I got to daven shachris, mincha, marv, which is religion. Spirituality is a religion. So when people take psychedelics and they have these spiritual awarenesses, if they keep on going back to these medicines, which a lot of people, what they do is, and the reason they're going back to these medicines, I know that feeling, is when you go to a place and you just feel good again because you're relating to something you went through in your life or you're seeing possibilities, you're thinking outside the box, you're going to a place of abundant light. But with all that light can also sometimes shatter a person's kalim. It can cause what's called shviras kalim, where some people they
Many
can
people
go into dark places and they can
think that
drop religion. They can drop the regular things that they're doing. They can easily get divorced, can grow their hair out long. They can, whatever, they go on their journeys. I'm sure you've seen it.
definitely, and I think it mainly comes from people not really understanding the power of the light, but also the power of the ability to change, right? And how much discipline is also needed, like this need for vessels when approaching it, going through it in a kosher way, and then integrating back down afterwards, right? It's so essential that I think it maybe gets overlooked a lot of times. And I was thinking, like you said, you get calls now. Are you serving psychedelics? It's like, how are you meant to answer that question, right? If you were, now you're gonna lose a client. If you weren't, like now you're gonna lose a client. Like we're in a generation where you don't know, and a lot of I think that a lot of that comes with like this. It hasn't been developed yet properly. I guess maybe some circles you could say it has, but the world doesn't hold on yet to a Torah, a full integrated Torah path to this. Do you think that it's possible? Do you think because there's two sides of this, right? There's the side of like we talked about earlier in healing. A person could get to a breakdown, right? To a point where they're shattered in life and then they need to go to a workshop. They need to go 3 days to a retreat to go start anew to learn some new techniques to cope in life and to revitalize and to rejuvenate. And then there's the person that's doing it preemptively. Either way, he has a stressed life as well. And he knows before I break down, let me let me go reconnect. Let me go take some time off and stay aligned. Can the same be said for psychedelics? Does a person only need to engage with it when they're broken, or could it be used in a more frequent way that enhances spirituality, that enhances like the everyday life?
Again, so spirituality is the search for lifting myself above the current situation that's causing pain for me in this world. Right? So I'm living in pain because the pain lives inside of me. Psychedelics, it opens it up. It allows me to express it. Almost I feel like a catharsis, just like letting go of it. Sometimes, that's what it feels like. And I think what is more important is what's my relationship to the thing I'm experiencing. Like when you come to the breath, if you have the meditation, I'm connecting to that thing that gives life to me. And I'm living life from the highest vibration possible, which is connected to source, which is connected to consciously why I'm here. What am I doing in the world? Who am I? I'm asking myself that question.